Hello students, this is Ms. Cave with my Co-Ed Core 1 class. Say hello class.
Hi.
And this is a lesson on volume of cylinders. So we're learning how to calculate the volume of cylinders. We've already calculated the volume of rectangular prisms. And today we've been looking at prisms and cylinders. We've been comparing them and seeing what they have in common and how they're different. And we came up with a formula together in class for volume of cylinders, and we're going to write that up here because we noticed that the only difference, here is an example of a cylinder. This is a cylinder, so to calculate the volume of a cylinder versus the volume of a prism has a base that is a rectangle, and a cylinder has a base that is a circle. So for a cylinder, we're going to find the area of the circle, whatever this area is, by using the radius, finding the radius, or applying the radius to the circle formula, and then we're going to multiply that by the height. So that's what we discussed in class today. So we're going to write the volume formula at the top of this paper. So volume of a cylinder is calculated. Volume is equal to pi r squared times height. That's our formula. We're going to use this formula for all of the problems, whether we're given the radius, whether we're given the diameter. And then the last type of problem that you have on here is how we're going to calculate height when we're given the volume and the radius. So sometimes you're given the height but not the volume and the radius, so we can use the formula to calculate the missing height. So we're going to go ahead and get started with some of these examples. So you can open up your foldable to the first problem. So example 1, we're finding the volume of a cylinder below. This prompts us to use 3.14 for pi. We are going to use a calculator on these, and we're going to show our steps. It also prompts us to round our answer to the nearest tenth if necessary. So we're going to always start with writing our formula just like we did with prisms. Volume is equal to pi r squared times height. So the very first step for every problem is you're going to write down the formula for cylinders. So looking at this, I know I need, I'm going to use 3.14 for pi, so I'm going to substitute that first. So I'm going to write it out, V equals, and I'm going to go ahead and just put parentheses because I know I'm multiplying, 3.14 for pi, and then who knows what our radius is? Josh? 5. So our radius, our r, is equal to 5. I'm going to label that on my shape. And then I'm going to put it in parentheses because I'm multiplying. And then I can't forget my exponent. And then I'm going to multiply all of this by my height. What is my height? 7. So height is equal to 7. So now that I've plugged in my numbers, I'm going to apply the order of operations to solve this. So what do I do first? Do I multiply these numbers together? Do I square the 5, or do I multiply 5 times 7? Isaiah? Square the 5, because our order of operations say exponents come before multiplication. So I'm going to simply write this out, 3.14 times 5 squared, which is what? 25 times 7. Now, you guys, when you get to this point, since it's all multiplication, you don't have to do one step at a time. Both of them are multiplication, so you can go ahead and just plug those numbers into your calculator. And then when you have your answer, raise your hand. So you can simply plug those numbers in because it's all multiplication from left to right. And then what is our answer? Did you guys get it yet? Do you have calculators? You want to go get calculators for your group? Just grab 4 calculators. Sanjayla? So it's 549 and 5/10. And what are our units? Centimeters. And what kind of centimeters? Cube. Because there are 3 dimensions, we have the 2-dimensional circle, and you're multiplying by the 1-dimensional height, so it's a 3-dimensional shape, so we use a 3-dimensional unit. So this is our answer. Anybody have a question so far? Make sense? You're just plugging in numbers. That's why we started with evaluating expressions, because now we have the expression or the formula. We're just plugging in numbers from the shapes. So that's our first example of volume of a cylinder. Now we're going to look at our example 3. No, let's go ahead and do 2. Let's do another example. Let's do example 2. So I want you to go ahead and try this one, writing down the formula, plugging in the numbers, and then calculating the volume. So go ahead and pause your video, try the problem, and then when you're finished with the problem, we will unpause. All right, so now that you've tried the problem yourself, let's take a look as we go over this together. We write down our formula first, which is pi equals the area of the circle, which is pi r squared, times the height, so that gives us the volume. We're going to simply plug in the numbers from the problem. So volume is equal to, we're going to use 3.14 for pi, we're going to use 6 for radius squared, and then I'm going to multiply all of that by 10. And our first step here, I'm going to use my exponents. So I'm going to rewrite this, 3.14 times 36 times 10. And now I'm going to simply multiply all 3 of those numbers together. 3.14 times 36 times 10. And my answer is volume equals 1,130.4 inches, what? Cubes. All right. Questions? So we did 2 problems that were similar. This is when we were given, so if you look at your foldable, given the radius. So when you're given the radius, that's the easiest because you're just plugging in the radius. And the radius is halfway across the circle. So your radius is halfway, and what dimension goes all the way across? What dimension goes all the way across?
Diameter.
What dimension goes all the way across?
Diameter.
All right, now everybody can hear you. So the diameter is all the way across, and the radius is only halfway. So what if we're given the distance all the way across? How do I get r? You divide it by 2. You find half of it. So that's what we're going to look at next. So let's take a look at example 3. So now we're going to find the volume. And you notice that this time we're not given the radius, we're given what? Diameter. So you're going to write D right here for diameter. So, and you're going to go ahead and get R. So if D is 8, what's R?
4.
R is 4. So I'm going to do that and I'm going to circle it so I know to use the 4 and not the 8. That's all that's different. So I'm going to write down my formula. V equals pi r squared times h. And now I'm going to substitute what I know. V equals 3.14 times 4 squared times 5. What do I do first? Exponent. So I'm going to square the 4. So V equals 3.14. What's 4 squared? 16 times 5. Now I'm going to multiply those together. I know I'm going kind of fast, but I'm going to leave this up for you. And then when you have your answer, raise your hand. Genesis, did you get the answer? I think you did. What'd you get? 251 and 2/10 meters cubed. So go ahead and try example 4. So we're going to pause the video while you try example 4, and then we'll unpause and go over it in a moment. Okay? We're going to do this one just like we did the last one. We know for the formula is volume equals pi r squared times h. Now you guys don't have to memorize these formulas. You're given the formula sheet, but it's important to know where the pieces come from. So like this, that's the area of our base. Because the base is a circle, that's why we use the area of a circle, and we multiply that times the height. All right, so this time again, I'm going to go through, and I'm given 19. 19 is actually our height. Even though the shape is on its side, it's still the height. The height is the distance between the two bases. Okay, even when it's turned on the side, that's still the height. So you look for the two circles, and you look for the distance between them, and that's going to be our height. For this one, we're given the diameter because it goes all the way across, but I need the radius. So to get the diameter, I'm going to divide that in 2. And this is a really big cylinder because MI means what? Do you guys know what that is abbreviated for? Miles. So this is a really large cylinder. 7 miles is the radius. So we're going to plug in the numbers. Volume, 3.14 times 7 squared times 19. Oops, now you can see. And I'm going to evaluate it, the expression. So I'm going to rewrite it. 3.14. 7 squared is 49. And I'm going to multiply that by 19. So I take my calculator. I multiply 3.14 times 49 times 19. And I get, who's got it? Who's got the answer? Brooklyn, do you have it? What do you get? $2,923, and we're rounding to the nearest tenth, so it's going to be 0.3 miles cubed. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and stop there for now. We're basically today, I want to focus on just using the formula to find volume, and then tomorrow we'll talk about how we can use the formula when we're given the volume and the radius, how we can find the height. We'll talk about that tomorrow, but for today we were just learning how to apply the formula for volume. And that's it for our lesson.